We're live. Aha! On my crappy camera again. So while we're waiting on people to join in, there's a couple things I wanted to talk about tonight. Number one is my favorite lightsaber and why. Number two are switch PCBs, and particularly the ones for the DV6. And I don't know about the new Secret Saber switch PCBs, but I would imagine they're similar. So I'm going to show you a cool trick. So and if any of y'all are doing the Corbant DV6s, this is a very cool trick to make your life easier. That's one of the reasons I love the DV6 is there's no engineering around the switches. It's already engineered. But my favorite saber is this Graflex. It's a 2.5 Graflex. This has a Goth 3D master chassis in metal. That's why it's squeaky. And it's stainless and rhodium, and it's beautiful. That's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful chassis. And when you ignite it, it mimics the crystal chamber, mimics the blade. It's a beautiful thing. And the Neo pixel accents. Yeah. So this was my favorite build of all time. Is the Megtooth Monday. Oh yeah, it's Megtooth Monday live. Yeah. I am oh, by the way, Mike, I got the button packages in, so when I finish this video tonight, I'll be soldering button boards. And I got a surprise on the button boards, and I'm not going to show you until I find out if it works out. If it works out, I'll send you some pictures. It's going to be cool. But at any rate, I wanted to talk about this saber. This hilt I installed a couple years ago. Of course, it's a Graflex 2.5 Goth 3D metal master chassis. Now that chassis alone, if you printed it in metal now, is like $1,500. So just the chassis, $1,500. But back when I built this one, I think it was more like $600 or $700. So the prices have doubled on Shapeways since I built this saber. But it's a beautiful chassis, but you're going to pay the price for it. This lightsaber is powered by Teensy Saber V3. I was able, because of this particular chassis, I was able to shove a 21700 in there, but I would never do that again because it's too precarious. It would have been much better just to stick with an 18650 in this saber, but it does have a 21700 in it. It says red button activation and slide tab auxiliary through the switch 22, which isn't accurate, but neither is a Graflex 2.5. And, offline, myself and some other guys, we've been talking about the Graflex 2.5 and how much we're going to miss them since they're no longer in production. Park Saber still shows them on his website. So I don't know if he's still going to be producing them or what. But you won't be able to get them, hey, Anarch Root, you won't be able to get them at the Custom Saber Shop or Corbant anymore. But this was a great hilt. And if any of y'all are not on the Star Killer group, a lot of those guys on the Star Killer group, they take these Graflex 2.5s and they actually cut the crystal chamber into the shroud and the inner core. And they, and they don't use these grips. And of course, they don't use the Graflex clamp. But they turned this into a Star Killer. And I think the Star Killers they're making out of the 2.5s are second to none outside of somebody machining their own, which, by the way, there's somebody on there's somebody on the Star Killer Saber groups on Facebook right now that's machining his own Star Killer Saber. And he's got brass and copper. I mean, that thing is sick. Sick. He put up some more pictures today, but that thing is sick. But the reason I wanted to talk about this thing has Teensy Saber V3 in it. Now, before, open source, and I'll show you, there's the double stack board. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but there's the double stack Teensy Saber. I had to do some really crazy stuff to make it fit into this chassis. But the Teensy Saber does fit in there. It fits in the prism slot, but, definitely had to do some modification of Darth Rio's chassis, but it works. And it's infinitely upgradable. Hey, Brandon and Cole, a few years ago when we were installing lightsabers, let's say I installed a Nano Viscotti into a lightsaber. And then all of a sudden, oh my God, Nano Biscotti now supports something it didn't support before. Your only option was to gut that saber, pull all the internals out of it, and buy another soundboard and put the new soundboard in there. And I don't know what percentage of Plector and NEC's profits were for people ripping out, gutting, and redoing sabers with upgraded technology, but I'm sure it was significant. I'm sure 20 or 30% of their sales were gutted sabers. That Teensy Saber installed Graflex. I installed that thing over 2 years ago. It's running the current OS with color changing and everything. On Teensy Saber V3, it runs Smooth Swing, which Smooth Swing was kind of in its infancy when I built that saber. That's got Smooth Swing, accent swings, color changing. It does stuff that I couldn't have dreamt of when it was installed. Advantage open source. When you install an open source saber, whether it's Teensy Saber or Profi 1.5 or Profi 2.2, it's infinitely upgradable for eternity unless some new technology comes to light that wasn't foreseen and the current electronics on the soundboard aren't capable of operating it. But Frederick really tried to think toward the future when he was building the Profi. And Lord only knows what the future holds, but the Profi is so easily and quickly upgradable. It's just an incredible platform. And so is Teensy Saber V3. Just an incredible platform for lightsabers. No more gutting your sabers, desoldering all your wires, having to rewire the whole saber. Now you just plug your USB port in, plug your saber into the computer, reprogram the new config file and the new operating system. Bam, you're up to date. So eventually that's going to be my next tutorial series. It's not going to be soldering or building lightsabers or none of that. I think my next tutorial series is primarily going to be on how to install a new version of the OS on your config. I've already got config videos out there, but I think how to upgrade to the new operating system once you get your Profi saber. And there was a bunch of questions today. Apparently a bunch of people got Profi sabers today because there was a gazillion questions a minute on open source, and I tried to answer a couple of them, but I was like, oh my God, a bunch of people got Profis. But at any rate, that was one topic of discussion. And y'all have any feedback on that, or any of y'all experienced that, let me know. Second topic of discussion. This is the switch PCB that comes with the Corbanth DV6 or TCSS DV6, as it were. It's a switch PCB, and it goes, let me show you, this is an installed DV6, and the switch plungers are here and here. That's activation. And this is auxiliary. Now, when these switch PCBs, when they come with the saber, they're connected via traces. So if y'all recall, if you watch my switch video, you've got these two switches. Now, each switch has 4 legs on it. You can see where the 4 legs solder in. But along where those legs solder is a copper trace that runs all the way through this PCB, which means that if you wired these switches, you couldn't wire them independently because they're both on copper traces. You got ground on one side and switch on the other. But there is a way to separate them. So you can wire independent switches. If you take your Dremel, and I'm going to show you this close up if I can with my shaky hands. Do you see where it looks like I have sanded away the paint and the copper on this side of that switch PCB? It's because I have. So the bottom side I've left intact. So the bottom side of the PCB that runs through both switches is the ground that's common to both switches. The top side, I can wire my switches independently on the same PCB. I'm pretty sure the new crossguard will have a similar PCB for the switches underneath the switchboard that Cal created. But the bottom line is, look, the DV6 was engineered to install. The Graflex 2.5s to some extent were engineered to install as well, at least for red button activation. But you had to do some engineering if you wanted to use clamp switches. And I've just installed a Graflex with clamp switches, which I'll show you that in a second, because it's done. So that's going to be in the Saber updates. But you can take these switch PCBs and you can separate the trace on one of the sides, and then that way you have independent switch leads, but you still share your common ground on both switches. So basically, you can have 3 wires coming off this PCB. Negative, which I always wire white, that's my common ground to both switches. Green for my main switch, and yellow for my auxiliary switch. So 3 wires coming off this PCB to 2 switches, bada bing, bada boom. Now, to show you that in action, I have a couple of DV6s here that I'm working to install. Now, never mind, because this is like pre-install rough wiring. But the bottom line is I want you guys to see it. So the switch PCB basically sits right here over these 2 holes. And here you can see I have my white wire, which is common ground for both switches, my yellow wire, which is auxiliary, and my green wire, which goes to my main switch. Those are the 3 wires coming up. Those 3 wires will get wired to the PCB, and then we'll be done. There's some other cool stuff on this saber I was going to show y'all, which relates to the live video from last week. Because if y'all recall the live video we made last week, and I showed you how I use RGB LEDs inside my crystal chamber. Oh yeah, you only sand one side, Ken of the Hill. This video is a little bit too late for you. You only sand one side. You can have the switch PCBs can share that common ground, but the actual switches have to be independent. So if you just separate that one side, you can have common ground to both switches, but you still have your independent switch leads that can go to your soundboard. Just another quick shortcut on the DV6 and any other similar soundboard that has that. I wish I'd have got that to you first, Ken. I was trying to explain some of that to you on Messenger, but I don't think it really conveyed it like I wanted it to. So I'm going to show y'all something. This is a DV6, which is very, very rough. Very, very rough. And I'm going to connect the positive on my test battery to the positive on my crystal chamber LEDs, and I'm going to connect the negative to red. And there you go. You can see it on the back side. But that is my crystal chamber with RGB LED, that one of them that we actually showed you last week in the live video, lighting up my crystal chamber on this DV6. Trying to give it some shade there from the light. I got a pretty bright light overhead. Hopefully y'all can see that. But that is an example of how that works. And like I said, the cool part about Profi is that Profi can drive those RGB LEDs as if they were a NeoPixel. So if you have a Fireblade programmed in for your crystal chamber on when you run your RGB LED, that Profi is going to send signals. That's something else I wanted to show y'all. That Profi is going to send signals to the red, green, and blue diodes to make them light up and do NeoPixel-like stuff. That's the cool thing. Oh, JB, it's okay. You know, some people probably aren't home from work yet. You know, the Canadians are still where she was at. My favorite movie hilt is the Graflex. I think we covered that already, which I just covered that at the very beginning, Graflex. But I want to show y'all something here real quick. All right, so there's red. Now bear with me here because I'm having to do some precarious stuff. Now I'm going to add red and green, and you get kind of a yellow. Now I'm going to add red, green, and blue, and you get a white. Now we're back to red. So what the Profi is doing that helps you control that stuff, and by the way, if you combine red and blue, you get purple. If you combine green and blue, you get yellow. If you combine green and blue, you get cyan. And red and green makes yellow. Red and blue makes purple. Combine all 3, you get white. So basically what the Profi does on Fireblade is it's firing red, yellow, white, red, yellow, white, red, yellow, white, red, yellow, white, but it's firing it so fast that it's making that RGB look like a Fireblade. And I think I demonstrated that for y'all last week when I showed you the Fireblade inside of this saber. So I'll show that real quick.
Kylo
Oh, damn it. Went past it.
The Force is with you, young. Vengeance. The Force is with you, young Skywalker. Vengeance.
Come on now.
The Force is with you, young. Vengeance. If what you told me is true, hello there. I'm from the... Kylo Ren.
All right. So here's a fire blade in the crystal chamber running on an RGB LED. And it looks just like the NeoPixels. Never mind that front crystal. That front crystal, I got to replace the LED on it. But if you look at this back crystal, you can see how that mimics a fire blade. This is a standard RGB LED. This is not a NeoPixel. So I have done that this week. And these DB6s are both ready to install. And I got more to show you on the DB6s because I'm doing two different chassis. I'm doing one Goth and one Dimitri stock chassis. So here's the other. This is the other DB6, and this is running Dimitri Stock's chassis, which there's Dimitri Stock's chassis. It's going to have an on-off switch here, and the crystal chamber will be right here. I got the crystal here somewhere. Yeah, right here. Glue still setting up on the crystal chamber, but there's the crystal that's going to go right in there like that. So that's going to be pretty awesome. And then there's actually a cover that goes over this. And then, of course, the speaker I haven't installed yet goes right there. But, hey, Chetsaborn. So I already got the RGB LED installed. There's the leads on the RGB LED that's installed to illuminate the crystal chamber right there. And, you know, both these sabers are going to be awesome. Both are going to be unique. DV6s, probably my favorite Darth Vader saber. Now, getting back to that's what she said. That's my favorite lightsaber. Graflex and the TFA version. And I know a lot of people hate TFA, but the TFA version is my favorite. If it's not TFA, it's going to be A New Hope. As a matter of fact, I have a replica Graflex from TGS, which I'm installing with a Goth Mentor chassis. That'll be in A New Hope configuration. Oh yeah, Brandon, that's awesome. You know, I have a blade plug in my DB6 as well, which is, you know, the same thing you got. A NeoPixel lit blade plug in my DB6. It's awesome, man. This is my favorite Darth Vader lightsaber. The DB6 is just an incredible hilt because it's a combination between the Graflex and the MPP. I love it. I wish it had spent more time on the screen. But my favorite all-time saber is the Graflex. Second to that's going to be the Corbant, or not the Corbant, but the Crossguard by Kylo Ren. Which, you know, that's going to get us into a secret conversation, which we can talk about later. Right now, let's talk about another Graflex. So, that's cool. This is a Graflex, and it's not finished on the install yet. I have to install the accurate TFA clamp card. This is the stock one in there. And we're going to put a blank pommel cap on the back to cover these holes. But I figured I'd show this to you. And the guy whose saber this is, he was on the stream a minute ago. Be quiet, Cole. We're not going to talk about that. The guy whose saber this is was on the stream a minute ago. But there is the crystal chamber. This is a plastic one. It's Goth 3D, but it's still the PLA chassis. They look really good. You know, you can paint them and weather them, and I'm still working on more weathering on this, but, you know, we go slow. But at any rate, when you power this thing on, again, this crystal chamber is illuminated by an RGB LED, a standard RGB LED, not a NeoPixel.
Close your eyes.
Now, I do have NeoPixel accents in it.
Feel it.
But you can see them
The
there.
light.
And they really shine
It's
through on the back,
always
too.
been there.
Which is why we're putting the
It will
pommel blank
guide
on.
you. The saber. Take it.
has clamp activation, clamp auxiliary, but it also has red button activation. So I put the red button and the clamp activation in parallel. This one has a Smuggler's Outpost 28 millimeter speaker, which is pretty awesome. And like I said, we're going to be putting the full pommel cap on there for TFA and the TFA clamp card. And, then I got to build the blade, and then it's all over with but the crying on that saber. She's going to be done. But it's still squeaky because the paint's so new in it. But it's actually a really, really cool saber. I love installing these Graflexes. They're a lot of fun. And, this one was no exception. They're a pain, but I love them. I did the brass eye. I machined that down. I actually did a video where I machined that brass eye down, and I also had to hollow out the core. This has a 1-inch blade socket and the 11-pin TCSS connector in there. So this is an awesome Graflex 2.5. Hey, Rich, great to see you. Saw your saber today, man. That thing is awesome. But I'm going to miss these Graflex 2.5s. The accuracy Nazis that go around professing how inaccurate the 2.5 kits are, okay, they're inaccurate. But as far as for a lightsaber to wield around and take to conventions and beat around and bang with other sabers, this is way better than a TGS. It's tougher. It's tough as nails. And not only is it tough as nails, but it's capable of being cut up and turned into Star Killer sabers and all kinds of other lightsabers that we were making out of these 2.5 kits. I'm really going to miss these 2.5 kits. I think it's a travesty that they're gone. And I just think it's unfortunate because we had a lot of people that were accuracy obsessed, and that's basically what killed the Graflex 2.5. And I don't care that it wasn't accurately. I know. Look, I'm all for screen accuracy to a point, but when you're getting that anal retentive, then make a replica. But I think for the most part, for the masses, a Graflex 2.5 did the job. A Graflex 2.5 is a hell of a lot more accurate than a master replicas. The Graflex 2.5 is, a great hilt. I'm gonna miss it. It was a great hilt. I am definitely gonna miss it. What else were we gonna talk about? Oh, blade plugs. Oh yeah, this is for Mike. So Mike, basically, I ordered you one of these today in 1-inch. This is a 7/8 Graflex blade plug that's razor, and if I didn't show you mine, there's what mine looks like. I don't know if video's gonna show it very well, but this is a Arkham razor blade plug with a Graflex pin. And although not completely accurate, I think that's the cool option. So I ordered one of those for you today. So he's building it. This is what the standard Graflex blade plug looks like. So you can see they're relatively similar, but the razor blade plug's cooler because you get the razor shine through. So you do have one of these on the way in 1-inch, which I'll back with NeoPixels. It'll be awesome. But I think that is pretty much it. Let me look back behind me. Yeah. Oh yeah, the scrap flexes, Cole. A bunch of us, and I never got to do a scrap flex because I was like, man, these Graflex 2.5s will be around forever. And I wanted to do a scrap flex, and I also wanted to do a Star Killer with a 2.5, and now we can't. Hey, Fet 263. And it's because and I'm a member of Graflex Addict Support Group and East Coast Sabers, and I learned a lot of stuff from his videos. And I really love the Graflex 2.5, but I think that accuracy crowd basically got on Corbanth so hard that Corbanth went in with 89 sabers, and now we have another replica Graflex. So now there's 4 replica Graflexes. You have TGS, Romans, 89 sabers, and Corbanth. are all making replica Graflexes. Well, if we have that many replica Graflexes, what was wrong with letting Corbant still produce the 2.5s? Hey, Montreal, cool. I'll check it out. I got a Star Killer in queue too, and as a matter of fact, I have I forget the brand of the hilt. I'm having another moment, but I do have a Star Killer in my build queue. So right now I've got this Graflex and 2 DV6s and probably another Graflex shortly thereafter. And I like the TGS Graflex too. I mean, I have one. Yeah, it's stainless run. You're right there, Birch. Maker Prop Studio. Maker Props Studio made a stainless steel Graflex replica. That makes 5 replicas. So, in my opinion, there's plenty of replicas to choose from. I think Corbant should have stuck with the production on the 2.5s. And look, if they could have made some improvements on the 2.5s, like improved the S curve on the emitter, then fine. But how the 2.5 was constructed, I wouldn't have changed that, because that solid construction with the screw-on bottom hilt and all the chassis that are out there for that hilt were tried and true, and it was just a great hilt to install, and it was solid as a rock. It might as well have been a one-piece saber the way it was constructed. And I am going to miss the Graflex 2.5s. Well, that's awesome, Montreal. Look forward to seeing it. I'll check out the video when it's up. Star Killers are an awesome hilt. Yeah, Jeff, that may be something that we all may need to get together and put together a run of those things. That's something you can consider for your Etsy store, but we can have several investors that join in. We can talk about that offline, and you can put them up for sale on your Etsy store, and all the interested parties, like in the Star Killer support group, I'm sure that there would be plenty of purchasers out there on the 2.5s based on what I'm hearing. But that would be awesome for us to keep the 2.5s available, especially if Cal keeps supporting the TGS threaded 2.5 parts like the glass eyes and such. That would be awesome. But yeah, that was pretty much what I wanted to talk about tonight. Was the we covered it. We covered it. Hey, and these switch PCBs, if anybody's putting together a DV6, so here's the clamp that goes onto the DV6, and there's a single screw that goes down there in the center that holds the clamp onto the DV6. And the switch PCB, which you remember I told you how to separate the PCB on the, let's see if you can see where, oh, that's not the one I separated. Let's get the one I separated. That was a brand new one. I was like, hey, I'm not seeing it on video. This is the one I separated. So we can have independent switches on the DV6 PCB. And, once you wire it, it seats down in the bottom of the clamp just like that. And your wires coming out here, going into the holes in the saber, like I showed you earlier. And then these button plungers, they just drop down in there, just like that. Oops, I dropped them. And that. And then you have your buttons. And I dropped one of them. But bottom line is the DV6 switch assembly is one of my favorites because I don't have to engineer anything on the switches. I know that it's already engineered on the DV6. It was engineered at the factory. I wish more lightsabers were like that. I know that the saber that we're not supposed to talk about has an engineered PCB. I haven't seen it up close, but I'm sure it's going to be similar to the DV6 PCB. And hopefully I get my hands on one on May the 4th or 2, at least 2. And, then we'll be able to find out. But I know Cal installs lightsabers, so he's not going to engineer something that's not install friendly. Cal, and I do wonder how the J-lock's going to work once you have the wire installed, because if you have the red wire installed, you're not going to be able to take that J-lock apart unless you take the red wire out, and then you could take the J-lock apart. So while I think it's capable for crystal chamber installs on cow's hilt, I don't think I'd go that route. And I'm also, it's expensive, Max, but comparatively speaking, it's pretty awesome. It has stainless steel quillions, which you can heat stain. Yeah, I don't use super glue, Ken to the Hill. So I use E6000 to secure those. And let me show you. Oh, so let's get one of these switches out. So this is the switch. And that switch fits on there just like a hat, like this. And what I do is I take a little drop of E6000 and I put it inside that recess, a little drop. I mean a very little drop. And then I set the switch hat on like I like it in the clamp. Yeah, you have to assemble this in the clamp. But once I do that, then bada bing, it's solid. And you can, if you need to, you can still separate it. That's the good thing about E6000. Super glue, a lot of guys use super glue on their tips too. I wouldn't use super glue on the tips because you end up melting your, you can melt your blade material. Super glue is not a go-to for me. E6000 is good to go for me. Yeah. And I use E6000 putting together my armor too. So, E6000 is tops. Yeah. And super glue also leaves the ninhydrin fumes and frost everything. So I don't like super glue, not on lightsabers. And when I say sparingly on the E6000, I mean all it takes is a speck of E6000, and that switch plunger will never, ever fall off, ever. E6000 is the way to go. I E6000 my blade tips on, my blade butt ends on, and I use E6000 because while it has a good hold, if you need to, you can pry it off and remove it. It's actually like a rubber when it solidifies, and you can stretch and pull it apart and break the bond if you need to do repairs. But its flexibility is another reason that it's good for blade tips, because what happens and why blade tips pop off is when blades strike each other, they actually collapse inside the blade, which forces high pressure air up to the tip. And that's the only way it can escape is to blow that tip off. And that's air pressure that does that. But if you use E6000, it's enough that it has some elasticity that it might be able to slip off enough to allow some air out without you losing your tip. But you probably need to keep an eye on your tips every now and then, and you may need to redo E6000 on your tips. But E6000 is a major, major go-to for me on blade tips and lightsabers. I love E6000. It's good stuff. But you have to use it sparingly. You can't glob it in there. Just a little dab will do you. A big glob will screw you. That kind of mentality. Think about E6000 like solder. A little dab will do you and a big glob will screw you. That's probably good advice on E6000. You don't need a lot of it. I use E6000 on my crystals to hold them in the crystal chamber, like right here. This crystal is held in with E6000 at the base, and it's clear and you can't see it. And a bulk of the E6000 I have on the backside, which you'll never see. But that crystal is held on with E6000, and then the LED will shine right in there like a champ. Will light it up like a champ. Let's see. I know I have here. I have one right here. We'll do a quick experiment. Now look, this is probably going to burn out this because I'm not going to put a resistor on it because I don't have a resistor handy. But let's light up this crystal chamber. Let's light up this crystal chamber. And I'm massively overdriving this red, so it might only stay on for a second, and then it's going to burn out. So let me make it somewhere where I can show you guys. Bam. It burnt that LED. Thing's crap. Trash. In the circle file it goes. But oh well. It lit up for like a second before it blew. E6000. Good stuff. Redoing my config. I have not tested the OSV 4 point wherever it's at. Max, I have not got into OS 4 yet. As a matter of fact, the Graplex that I showed y'all earlier from Mike Perez, it's installed with 3.9. I haven't migrated to 4 on any of the sabers I'm installing here because I don't want to send out a saber that has a beta operating system on it. When an operating system is in beta, it means that there could be glitches and errors in it that haven't been worked out and tested thoroughly. Although usually Frederick, by the time Frederick gets it to beta testing, he's worked out most of the kinks. But every now and then people still find kinks after beta. So when I'm shipping sabers out to people, I don't mess around in the betas. Now, I was involved in the beta testing for 3.9, but only as it pertains to blasters. Because if y'all recall, when 3.9 was being written and was in beta testing, I was in the middle of a Profi blaster install at that time. So the blaster prop file was appealing to me, and I was in a lot of conversations on TRA about that blaster prop file so we could get Profi working for blasters. So yeah, I generally avoid the betas unless I'm testing, and I haven't had time to test on this beta because I was still renovating my bathroom when this beta began, and I'm too far behind to jump into it now, and plus I'm churning out all these lightsabers which aren't going to get it, so I just haven't messed around with the beta. Just haven't had time. I mean, if I get time, I'm building sabers. Like tonight when I end this live stream with y'all, I'll be soldering button boards for my comps all night long. That's my future tonight. Guaranteed. Yeah, and speaking of beta testing on the new OS, I mean, FET263 is probably your main beta tester, and he's actually on this stream right now, and he said it's getting close to being released. It's only a little bit left to be finalized. He just commented that. And if y'all haven't watched, Fernando put out a video today with him. You know, he's Vader in the 501st Legion and a Kylo, but he dressed up as Vader and he was battling a kid with a lightsaber. At the end of the video, the kid's lightsaber turned red, which was funny. But anyway, it was awesome. Fernando, when you first ignited that saber with that backdrop, that looked pretty cool. That was almost Rogue One-esh. It was awesome. That video gave me a big smile today when it popped up on my phone. I needed it at the time. It was a bad moment at work when that thing came out. But yeah, Fernando and Frederick and a bunch of others are working on the beta, including Max, I guess. Max, if you're creating a config file in beta, you're a beta tester. All you need to do is put that puppy in a lightsaber and start hitting buttons and making sure that everything's doing what it's supposed to be doing. But, you know, things are progressing, swimmingly in the new OS. It was crazy to see 2 big major OS upgrades back to back like this. And I think that will help to stabilize the Profi OS. I don't think you'll see major renovations to the Profi OS from here on out. These major number changes, like from 3 to 4, and that means they had major changes. And I've been in this since the Teensy Saber days, and I've only seen this one time back in the Teensy Saber lightsaber OS when it was evolving. Did Frederick push it this far, this fast? Profi OS Ultra is in the house. Good to see you on board. And, the beta testing for the new OS is definitely in the works, which this gets me into forks. I want to talk about forks a little bit tonight. And I will include a little bit about forks in the next tutorial that I put out there about upgrading to the new OS and forks. Thanks, Alex. Stay healthy too. Alex is up there in Kanukistan. I hope everything's going okay up there in Canada. Hey, Alex probably saw we were going to talk about Canada and said, he's talking about Canada. What's he saying about Canada? I love the Canucks. I actually know the Canadian national anthem because I've heard it so many times because I'm a hockey fan. But really quick about forks. You know, back before color changing was implemented on Profi operating system and N-lock and begin lock and a lot of other cool features like lockup on auxiliary, great button functions. Good. I'm glad to hear that, Alex. And a lot of us kind of defected from Frederick's version of the operating system into what was Fernando and Matt McGreary's fork, the SA2CC color change fork. But the reasons that we defected was because we wanted color changing. When people defect to these forks, hola in Madrid. When people defected to these forks, it created a lot of problems for Frederick because he really couldn't help them out in the forks because they weren't using the main operating system. And Frederick realized that so many people were using the SA2CC fork, and I think that's what kind of finally made him have the epiphany. All right, I need to do color changing on Profi OS. And he really drug his feet on it because I don't think he wanted to do it, but he did. And I think once he did color changing, the response to that was so positive that everybody migrated off the SA2CC fork and back onto the main OS. Now, Matt McGreary's still running a button prop file, which I still use Matt McGreary's button file. And that's how you get that voltage speak. So, like, if you want to know the voltage,
3.83 volts.
And that saber needs to be charged. But that's because I'm running Matt McGreary's button file. So I'm still running Matt McGreary's button file, which Alex helped to write that initially too down there, the Profi OS Ultra. But yeah, Alex, you're absolutely right. The forks have to be there to push creativity. But I don't think Frederick really anticipated how many people were going to be running that SA2CC fork. And the problem for it is, like, I installed a lot of sabers running that SA2CC fork. And, you know, wow, it really screwed me up because now if those sabers come back to me, I have to rewrite all the configs so they match the new OS. Right? Alex, I think right now, I know you can't watch what's going on Facebook, but you know, on TRA, I think mainly everybody's migrated back to the main OS right now, and there's still people out there playing around in Forkland, but I think that's mainly like development stuff that's going on. And Frederick looks at those, and you know, if you've got something really good in a fork, you can create a pull request. And Frederick looks at those forks and those pull requests, and if something's popular and seems like everybody wants that feature, I mean, he implements it. Fernando and Matt McGreary, and I know you, Alex, have all been, you know, pushing in that direction for mainly for color changing. Yeah, I think Frederick really knocked it out of the park on 3.9. I was happy with 3.9. I know I'm really going to be happy with all the stuff y'all done in the new OS. And I think at this point, unless you're a beta tester testing a fork and you really want to screw around with something crazy that's going on in a fork, I really think that everybody should stay on the main OS. Now, with that being said, oh yeah, he did. Frederick, I think Frederick was so busy designing the Profi and then the Profi 2.2. A lot of this was happening, you know, the SA2CC fork was really happening as he was perfecting and designing and fixing Profi 2.2. But I think once Profi 2.2 came out, it's working good. Everybody's happy with it for the most part. People that aren't burning them up with their soldering irons, with stray wires covering, you know, 20 pads. Outside of that, the Profi 2.2 works just fine. And I think once Frederick got the bugs worked out at 2.2, he came back and was like, okay, what are you guys doing with this? What's all this SA2CC nonsense and color changing? And yeah, Fernando, your ability to code is far beyond mine. I was writing some blade styles for 3.9 that I'm using as accent LEDs in these DV6s, and while they're much simpler compared to your blade styles, I mean, I'm still impressed that I can pull that off with the blade style generator, which I have a tutorial on, and so does Fernando. um, I can do simple stuff like that, but a lot of these ideas that you've helped implement, I can't do that. But I think those forks basically brought Frederick back into, yeah, no, it's crazy how much it's advancing right now with Fernando's work. But those forks, I think, help pull in Frederick to get him to give us color changing and save state. To me, the mind blowing, game changing feature for installers was save state and color changing. So now, if I build a Profi lightsaber for somebody, I'm going to keep my main banks labeled whatever it is. For instance, on a TFA Graflex, I'm going to have a bank for TFA, and I'm probably going to have, a couple of other Graflex sound files, 3. After those 3, there'll be bank 1, bank 2, bank 3, bank 4, bank 5, bank 6. So that the end user, if they get that saber and they're like, I really want to replace these sound fonts with something else. Let's say I had bank 1 was a blue blade and it had some Graflex-ish sound font on it. And the saber owner's like, I want Kyberphonics Father, which is a Darth Vader font, by the way. And you can get Kyberphonics fonts on Facebook, which connects to his website. And Kyberphonic, Jesse Kirkbride makes some awesome fonts. But let's say I put just some generic blue, font on there, and they're like, I want Jesse Kirkbride's Father there. They can take out the SD card, and in bank 1, that's my blue Graflexy kind of font, they can dump Kyberphonics Father sound font into that and then put the SD card back into the lightsaber. Now, when they ignite the lightsaber with the Darth Vader font, it's blue. But all they have to do is go into color changing mode, change it to red, lock in red, and now you have Darth Vader font and a red blade. And every time you ignite that font, it's going to be a red blade because the Profi remembers, because of save state, what you did. To me, that was a game changer that made my life a lot easier, because I can instruct somebody how to change their lightsaber without adjusting the config. Now, if they want to change my blade styles, then they're going to have to learn how to reauthor the configs. But I include my configs on the SD card, which is suggested by Frederick. Every lightsaber that I send out to somebody, I put the configuration file on the SD card so they can pull the SD card out and put the SD card on their computer and save their config file and all the sound fonts that I put on there when the saber was installed. If they don't do that, that's on them, but I certainly give them the tools to work with. If they don't do that, then that's their problem. Oh yeah, that's awesome. Kyberphonics got a sale going on. But yeah, Jesse Kirkbride and Case Sith are huge guys for open source sound fonts. I don't want to get too much into the politics of all this, but I will say this. In the very beginning, when Teensy Saber, when Frederick was first implementing Smooth Swing on Teensy Saber, I emailed several font makers, big font makers, and asked them to come help. I even made a video. And in that video, which I forget what it was called, it was like Smooth Swing Brainstorming or something like that. You'll have to go back and look on my page for the videos, but Smooth Swing Collaboration, I think that's what it was called. But in that video, actually, I worked on my own Smooth Swing pairs for an existing font that was out there from a big font maker. And I was trying to get him to come in and help us, because I'm not a sound engineer. I can make a Saber sound font, but it ain't going to be as good as Jesse Kirkbride's or Casis. I don't do powder coating, Chris. I only do lightsaber installs. I do some weathering with on aluminum hilts, and some minor painting. Like right now on, I'm getting ready to install. Here, I can show you guys something else because it's out because I'm working on it today. Now you're not going to be able to see the whole thing, but ugh, the light. So the emitter is in paint right now. I have shined up this hilt. You know, it's hell and gone from where it was when I got it. And I'm getting ready to start the install on this. This will have a crystal reveal, all brass, pretty much chassis. This is a high dollar. This is going to be a high dollar saber because just this hilt alone, you know, is like 500 smackers. And the chassis that's going in this, I think, cost me, I don't know, probably around 600 bucks. So 1,100 bucks in parts, and that's before I even install the thing. And once I install it and put all the components in there, it's going to be sick. These hilts are pretty big. They're about as big as the Black Series lightsabers were. That's why a lot of people don't like them. But that's a really cool Ben Solo hilt. I know that Phoenix, there's a guy that was even making crossguard emitters for these Phoenix props Ben Solo hilts, but I don't know why you'd want to do that. I'll show you some of the chassis parts. There's some of the chassis parts that are going in that saber. Brass and rhodium. It's going to be real pretty. And a lot of this stuff's outside of paint. But that saber, I'm going to be weathering it with Birch Casey's aluminum black. And it's going to be an awesome saber when I'm done with it. It's going to be really awesome. No, those are Goth. That chassis is made by Goth, by Darth Rio, Goth 3D Designs. And, you know, it's a cool chassis. That saber is going to have a 26-650 in it, so you'll have a lot of runtime on it. It'll be a heavy beast, but it will be an awesome lightsaber. Yeah, that thing is going to be awesome. It's not so easy to take them apart to expose that brass, but yeah, that lightsaber is going to be probably one of my big pieces. Now, with that being said, there's something else we didn't talk about. On the TRA right now, and I don't know if they've extended it, but Solos Hold or Nerfworks Labs is actually doing a run of dark sabers. And I know some people aren't Solos Hold fans, but I think they make really nice looking sabers. I jumped on that run, and those hilts and blades are going to be very expensive. Just the hilt and the blade, empty with nothing in it. You know, you're talking 700 bucks a piece, and I'm in for 2 of them. And you know, hopefully I'll be installing that once I move into my new house, which that still isn't that close to happening thanks to COVID-19. But that'll be one of my, that and the Phoenix Props Ben Solo hilt will be a sure sign that my life is returning to normal. And then maybe after I build those 2 sabers, then I'll start taking commissions again. And when I take commissions, I don't think I'm going to do it on the lottery anymore. That's getting too hard for me to keep track of. Plus, there's a lot of people people that won the lottery, and I sent them emails, and then they never respond back to me. And it's kind of like, okay. So I go to the next person, and the next person, and the next person, and just not working out. Oh yeah, the DV6. Yeah, let's go to a Darth Vader font.
Imperial Knight. Be careful not to choke on your aspirations, Director.
I love this thing. That's awesome. That's this was my Profi 2.2 beta saber. So this is what I did my Profi 2.2 beta testing in. It's still in the same configuration I installed it in. I need to replace one of the LEDs in it. that went bad. But yeah, Cole, that's kind of what I'm thinking about. Is when I take commissions, number one, you're going to have to be a subscriber on YouTube, and number two, you're going to have to show up in the live chats. That's kind of what I'm thinking. The more we've done these Megtooth Mondays, the more I'm kind of like, the loyal fans. Hey, Bobby. Yeah, we were just talking about that. What I'm thinking about doing is getting rid of the lottery and just going to YouTube subscribers and people that are on the Monday chats, keeping our group rather small. Because I'm never going to take on, right now I have more sabers than I really care to be installing, but these aren't customers. I mean, these are just hilts that I bought last year on the May 4th sale at TCSS. And I'm just going to be pumping them out there as quick as I can. I'm trying to raise money for risky surgery that's coming up. And I'm pumping those out there to get those out there. But as far as commissions, I'm still not going to be taking commissions until I move. Uh, Once I get moved, like I said, hints that I'm going to be back taking commissions again is going to be the Dark Saber and the Ben Solo Saber. When you see me put those out, then my life is getting back to normal. Yeah, you'll be in the running, Max. But my God, it would cost you a lot of money to ship your stuff from Australia to me, and then for me to ship it back to Australia. Did you ever get in touch with RC Aussie down there? I think he's around Melbourne. I don't think he's in Sydney, but it would probably be cheaper for you to ship it to him in Australia. But of course, I've been watching his YouTube channel, and he's more into drones now than lightsabers. But RC Aussie was a massive lightsaber guy. Yeah, he must have got out of lightsabers. I guess he's just doing drones now. He does all those racing drones and all that, POV drones. I haven't built any Ripper saber blades, but the funny thing is that you brought that up, Tyler, is Solo's Hold, this dark saber is going to be a dark saber neopixel blade, and it's two pieces, and the neopixels are going to fit in there, and then the second piece fits in over the neopixels to make it a complete blade. So it's going to be interesting. Now I know Ripper came out with a neopixel dark saber blade about 2 or 3 months ago, and it looked pretty promising. The only issue I had with it was the tip wasn't really illuminated very well, and that's going to be hard on Solo's Hold blade too. I'm not sure how they're going to work that out, but they need to make sure that one of the strips can actually point up towards the tip, so the tip's illuminated. We'll see. Supposedly they're building some mock-ups to make sure everything's kosher, and I guess we'll see how Solo's Hold blade looks when they get it put together. Cool, JB. I'm going to be getting going pretty soon myself. We'll see you all. We'll see you next week. You stay healthy too, and may the force be with you, or the dark side, as it were. But yeah, we should be close to wrapping this thing up. I'm at 58:37, and I don't know if Jeff Birch, Ken of the Hill, you're the man. You don't have to do that. You guys don't have to do the super chat thing, but I certainly appreciate it. You know, the YouTube channel is going pretty good. I'm really happy with my YouTube channel. I just hate my camera. Oh yeah, I appreciate it, Ken. That's why I'm pumping out these sabers right now, trying to fund Risky's knee surgery, which is going to be a lot more expensive than I first thought. What about what, Birch? Oh yeah, I was going to say I'm at 59, 15, 17, 18, 19, and Birch is going to be all over me. Yeah, Bobby, if you're building a simple saber, and there's a bunch of great soundboards out there right now for simple sabers, Verso and come on, y'all, help me out. What's the other soundboard from Germany? Frederick. What's that guy's name? I can't remember, but the Verso is awesome. If you can get hold of a Verso, very easy to wire up. We'll see you. We'll see you. Golden Harvest. That's it. I got bailed out. I got bailed out by Birch. Hey, Birch, you would have had a conniption if you'd have seen me this weekend. I was up on the roof, replacing shingles. We had a really bad thunderstorm that blew through here last week, and it knocked a tree down on my roof and busted up my roof. Brand new roof. It's only 2 years old. So I had to climb up there and replace the shingles. And there was no safety third or fourth or fifth. I don't know what the hell was going on up there, but I was like, when I was up there pounding in the nails with my gun, I was like, if Birch saw me right now, he would shit a brick, which is true. But at any rate, it is about time for me to go. Yeah, Golden Harvest is a simple saber. Yeah, Bobby, all you got to do is come on here and ask questions on Mondays, and we'll help walk you through it. But Golden Harvest and Versos are great soundboards to get into to build a very simple saber. And why I know, Bobby, is you're more likely to be successful is you didn't say, hey, I want to build a lightsaber with crystal chamber, external recharge port, detachable blades, blade ID, and all this stuff that Profi can do. If you go to build the more complicated you decide to build your first saber, the less likelihood of success you're going to have. The simpler you decide to build your first lightsaber, the more likelihood of you having success. Oh, Cole, you guys don't have to do that. That's awesome. I really appreciate it. I wasn't looking for charity. I'm just building lightsabers to sell them. But thank you all very much. But yeah, Birch is like, oh my God. Yeah, we almost lost Megtooth Sith last weekend up on the roof. Yeah, Bobby, keep it simple and you'll have a high likelihood of success. The people I worry about are the people that for their first lightsaber, they're like, I want a crystal chamber, I want, a detachable blade with blade ID, 20 gazillion smooth swing fonts and blades, and I want this button lighting up like this and that button lighting up like that. And I'm like, oh man, that's kind of complicated. You might just want to make a lightsaber with a switch and a blade, which Verso and Golden Harvest, bam, you get color changing, neopixel, ignition, retraction, clash, lockup, blaster blocks, smooth swing. You get all that with Verso. No need for programming. You wire up the soundboard per the instruction manual and fire up your saber, and it works. I think once you have success like that, Bobby, then it's more likely that then you can exponentially expand your skill sets and add features onto the saber. But thank you, Cole, very much for the super chat. And, also I want to thank Ken of the Hill for the super chat. You guys don't have to do that. Yeah, Bobby, if you missed the beginning of the stream, we were talking about there's tons of different Graflex hilts out there, replicas. I think we counted 5 replicas. You got TGS, Maker Prop Studios, Romans, 89 Sabers, and Corbanth. They all make replica Graflex hilts. The new Corbanth, which is basically an 89. The Graflex 2.5, if I was going to buy a Graflex, that's what I would get, because there's a lot of chassis out there for it that are inexpensive. It's easy to install, fairly easy for red button activation. It's already set up. If you go the Graflex shop replica route, those sabers get a little bit more complicated, but certainly you could do a replica Graflex. Yeah. We already talked about that a little bit, Jeff, and I already did the email notification on that deal, and I'm going to be stalking my computer from the stroke of midnight in England on the 3rd and all night long. And, I'm going to be, I wish I had some program to beat everyone else, because I think they're going to be gone in 5 minutes. I just need 2 of them. But yeah, Bobby, I would strongly encourage, if you can find a Graflex 2.5, that's a better kit to install than a replica. Replicas can be a little bit more complicated, but there is the Graflex Addict support group on Facebook, which can help you if you're going to do a replica like the TGS install. It can be done. It's just not as easy as the 2.5. But earlier in the stream, you missed it, Bobby, but we were talking about how a bunch of us are going to miss the 2.5s, and hopefully, Birch and me and some other guys can maybe get together and pool our resources and maybe get a run of 2.5s going on, so we can keep them available for eternity. It was the Corbant Graflex 2.5, yes, but they're no longer being distributed by Corbant. They were actually designed initially by Parks Sabers, and Corbant and TCSS and a bunch of other distributors got on with Parks and, ran the 2.5s. Corbant got away from Parks. They parted ways, and it was ugly, and it really had a lot to do with the LS6 and the Crossguard V2, in my opinion, and the Graflex, and the fact that Parks didn't want to modify the S-curve on the Graflex 2.5s to make the folks over at Graflex Addict Support Group happy, and so Parks said, I ain't doing that, and Corbant parted ways and partnered up with 89 Sabers, and so now when you buy Corbant, you're either getting an 89 Sabers or KR, OR, or something like that. He's parted ways with Parks. But yeah, TGS.com, the graflexshop.com is a good replica hilt, but those replica hilts are a little bit more complicated than the 2.5s to install. I would say you'd be better off with the 2.5. Yeah, there's more to it than that, but these 2.5 hilts, and this is a 2.5, easy to install, user-friendly, lots of options for upgrades. You can do a lot of different things with them, and they're very easy to install, especially if you're just doing a simple chassis without a crystal chamber in it. They're pretty easy to install. But at any rate, I am over my time limit. Birch, let's talk about that 2.5 run. When you get some time off, I may be able to help you invest in that, and we can put it up in your Etsy store or something. We all need to talk about that offline sometime. But at any rate, thank you everybody for watching another great edition of Megtooth Mondays. I think these things are a lot of fun, and I learn a lot from y'all. Y'all learn a lot from me, and bear out kind of what it looks like on the bench behind me, which is nuts, because I got like 4 lightsabers being built here right now, 5 if you include the Ben Solo hilt that I'm working on, weathering and painting. But at any rate, lots of stuff going on, so the sabers are starting to heat back up. And then, of course, they'll be gone for the summer because I got to get my boat ready, and hopefully the world gets back to normal soon so I can take the family out on the boat and enjoy some time in the ocean and maybe do some scuba diving this summer too. So, summers I don't do a lot of lightsabers usually anyway. Yeah, I know. No more rooftops for me. I'm hoping that's the last time I go up on the roof of this house. I've crawled under the house for the last time. I hope last weekend was my last time on the roof. Jeff Birch would have had OSHA in there writing me all kind of tickets. I violated all kinds of rules. But I got it done, and I lived. So life is good. At any rate, got to go. We're 8 minutes over. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in every week. If you like my videos, including the ones that aren't live, like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you get the notifications when I'm popping on. And thank you all for tuning in every week. Nerd up, hashtag nerd up. May the force be with you all. You're always in my thoughts and prayers. And, as for me, I'll be on the dark side. We'll see you, Ken of the Hill. You too. Have a great week. E6000. Peace, everyone.